Welcome everyone to another week. And I'm going to start this week with a question. Have you ever actually thought about how other people see you? Like how they actually perceive you in a group situation? We quite often, during our workshops that Hindsight runs for companies, take an approach where we talk about individuals and how the individual thinks they're perceived by the group. And quite often what they find is that the group gives them feedback quite on the contrary to how they perceive themselves. And the question for you that I want you to think about today is, are you as approachable, maybe as decisive or as inspiring as you probably think you are? Are you truly like that? Or are there blind spots, perhaps some things you don't see that everyone else does see? So this episode, while it's about self-awareness, it's not enough just to be self-aware. It's also a real skill to be able to reach out and ask someone to provide you with feedback without you getting all upset over it or lose your mind over it. So what are those gaps in your self-perception and how can you fill those gaps? So we're going to talk about the JHA window, which is a deceptively simple tool that can be used to change how you lead and also how you show up in the world and the value that you give to a team. We'll also pull some insights from Adam Grant, Robert Greene, who I've been reading a lot lately, Cal Newport, and also for those that used to follow the Warrior U podcast, one of my heroes, Tim Ferriss. Because high performers know the real advantage isn't just the skills that you bring to a team. It's about being able to see yourself clearly through their eyes. All right, so let's get into it. So the main problem is that we don't see ourselves as others see us. And here's the thing. Most of us are walking around with this completely warped sense of self, not because we're arrogant, not in all cases, although a few people I've worked with over the years come to mind, but because our brains are wired for us to perceive ourselves in a certain way. And psychologists call this the self-serving bias. We naturally interpret our actions generally in a pretty flattering light. And Adam Grant talks about this in his research. He says we judge ourselves based on our intentions, but others judge us on our actions, which makes sense. And that's why you might think you're a really great communicator, but your team might have a completely different take on that. They might think that you interrupt too much. I think I'm a really good communicator, but I get told that I finish people's sentences and get excited and try and move on to the next thing pretty quickly, which is quite frustrating for my partner and friends. You might think you're approachable, but others see you as intimidating or closed off, recluse or surly or something like that. And this is where the JHA window comes in. So it's a framework that helps you break down how you're perceived, and it's broken into 4 pretty easy to use quadrants. First of all, there's the open area. So if you were to look at the quadrant, it's the top left-hand area. It's what you know about yourself and what others also know about you. Okay, I am a good public speaker. I know that. I've trained myself to be a good public speaker. People who know me know that I can speak well in a crowd, especially with a bit of preparation. Okay, so that is an open area for me. Then you have the next area, which is your blind spot. So this is what others see in you that you don't see. Now, when we were doing some work years ago with a company who shall remain nameless, but they do stuff in the oil and gas sector, some of the feedback that I got was that I was quite arrogant. And see again, above open area, good public speaker, but in my blind area, how that was showing up was that I would try and flex intellectual muscle in a group setting, put people down. And so it came across that I was really arrogant in the way that I was facilitating workshops. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that at all. So that was a gift, actually, if you think about getting that feedback, because it allowed me to change the way that I facilitate workshops, certainly. Then you've got the hidden area. So what you know, but don't share. Now, this could be a skill. It might be something that you hide because it's a weakness. It could be strategic, but you don't generally share this thing, whatever it is. So for me, I'm pretty happy to say that I'm not great with numbers. And that is a real weakness for me. It is in business too. That's why I lean on some pretty handy people when it comes to my accounts, tax, accounting, those sort of things. That's a big overshare, Bram. And then there's the unknown area. So that's the untapped potential that neither you nor others have yet realized. And we're going to talk a little bit about Adam Grant in a moment, but he says that, that within this area, if you think about your past performances are no way indicative, or your past experiences are no way indicative of your future performance. And most leaders focus on what they know. So that technical excellence, they focus on their skills, the things they've learned to do the job really well, and their strengths. And they might know their weaknesses, they might hide them, or they might try and focus on fixing them. But real growth actually comes, especially as a leader, from shrinking that blind spot, the thing you don't know anything about, and expanding that open area so perhaps people even do know some of your weaknesses so that they can support you through that. And the only way that you can shrink your blind spot and expand your open area is through feedback, okay, through actually having that conversation with your team. So let's break them all down. We'll go with the blind spot first. It's what others see, but you don't. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because no one wants to hear that they have this blind spot. They don't want to know that, hey, you react in this way, or you act in this way, or you have this mannerism. But trust me, you do. I do. Everyone does have a blind spot. So Robert Greene, in his book, The Laws of Human Nature, he talks about self-delusion and how people cling to a self-image that isn't necessarily accurate. And we like to believe we're rational or kind or competent. But the truth is we all have these behaviors that undermine us without realizing it. And then if I was to support that through the reading that I've done the last few weeks again on Tim Ferriss, he has this simple rule for spotting blind spots. And it's, if you hear the same criticism from 3 different people, it's not an opinion, it's a pattern. And patterns are really powerful when it comes to understanding who you are, and especially around leadership. And so what do you want to do to be able to shrink this blind spot? And it's as simple as, and difficult, as asking for radical feedback. Instead of saying, how am I doing? You might say, hey, listen, we've been working together for a while. What's one thing that I do that might be holding me back? Now, I thought about asking my own boss, someone that I work with, that, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to get some, because of the personality involved, some pretty frank and fearless feedback. So I just have to be ready for that. And also, you want to be looking for those real non-verbal cues. Do people hesitate before coming to see you, before speaking to you? Are you sensing that they avoid direct eye contact with you when giving feedback? Or all of these cues, this information, if you start to analyze your interactions with people, that's powerful. That's data. And data will give you information to make decisions on. And you also have to check your own reactions. If feedback makes you defensive, then that's the sign that it's probably true. If it's something that you walk away from and go, Jesus, I can't believe that person bloody said that. Seriously. And then you have this overwhelming feeling of guilt or, ooh, that might be right, then that person's probably just given you a gift. The hardest part of leadership isn't making decisions, I don't think. It's actually having self-awareness to see the impact of those decisions. So that's how I think you can shrink down that blind spot. It really is about that radical candor. Can you provide me feedback? I'm good, I can take it. Now, the hidden area, what you don't share, it's completely flipped, right? If the blind spot is about what you don't know. The hidden area is about what you don't share. So this could be a strength. You've never revealed you're fluent in French, and yet you're the team principal for Red Bull and you're using Renault engines. That would be a real advantage, for instance. Let's say, it's going back a few years now. Or perhaps it could be some way that you can increase your negotiations, or maybe have a deep technical expertise. These things could be real strengths for you. Something you could be a genius at maths, for instance, but never tell anyone because you don't need to use it in the job you're in, but you understand numbers intimately. That could be a real advantage. Perhaps it's a struggle, okay? So you're hiding that you have imposter episodes, that you are burnt out, or that you have a real fear of failure. Perhaps you're an introvert and you're just faking it and you get home every day and you collapse on the lounge because people have been talking your face off. I get it. So Cal Newport, who's the author of Deep Work, and you've heard me talk about him a few times, he argues that most people underutilize their true talents because they don't create an environment that allows those strengths to emerge. I want you to, one of the things that I ask in workshops right at the start when we're getting to know each other in a big circle, and I ask people, hey, what's that superpower that you bring to a team? What's that one thing that you can bring to a team that's unique to you and a strength you have? And it's generally pretty different across the group. And I always lead by saying that my superpower in a team environment is positivity. That's what I bring to a team. I can tell you how we're going to be successful. Even when everything's against us, I'll find a way. That's me. Others say that it's their cool head under pressure. Some of them say it's their empathy. Some people say it's their deep technical knowledge of a subject. There's all sorts of things, but if you can identify what that real strength is, and if you can set that up into your work, then I think that you go a long way to doing what Cal Newport was describing, which is to create an environment that allows your strengths to be utilized and be the best for the team. And so I've got a challenge for you. I want you to think about what's something about you that others don't know, but perhaps they should in your team. And trust me, I've heard it all. And sometimes they can be really novel and they can add some real extra dimension to teams. If you're hiding a strength, you need to try and think about finding a way to bring it into your work and into your team. And if you're holding back a challenge, you need to then start opening up to people that you trust to develop that challenge more. So that hidden area also gets into the open area. And great leaders, really great leaders, and I'm sure you've worked with some, they don't just build teams, they let their teams truly be themselves, and then they're able to get all of that, dare I say it, it's diversity, it's all of that different diversity of thinking, of skills, of opinions. If they can bubble that all up to the surface, they can then pretty much take on any challenge. Now, with the unknown area, that's the final sort of quadrant. When others see your potential before you do, I like to think of this as pattern recognition. This is where things get really interesting. The part of you that neither you nor others fully see yet is where your potential is. And the book that Adam Grant wrote, Hidden Potential, I think is one of the best reads of last year or the year before. And he talks about the idea that past performance doesn't necessarily predict future success, that potential is often spotted through that pattern recognition. So if someone says, hey, I think you'd be really great at this, and then you feel that uneasiness, that imposter episode coming on, that's probably because that person has recognized traits and behaviors and patterns that you're demonstrating that they've seen be successful in that challenge or in that undertaking before. And that's why they're now saying, hey, I think you could be great at this. So for example, a mentor can see a natural leader in someone who's never led before, and a coach can spot high-level strategic thinking in someone who's never been in charge before. So the best leaders don't just seek feedback for these things. They listen when others recognize something in them before they do, and then they will go on a journey of self-talk to reinforce that pattern recognition that the other person has seen. So I want you to ask yourself, has someone ever taken a chance on you before you were ready? Did you ever feel like you were jumping into something feet first and you may not know if you can do it, and then you did? So someone saw something that you couldn't, and they were probably right. Okay, so the skill of this week, I want you to shrink your blind spot and expand your strengths and really lean into those. So if you want to grow as a leader, shrinking your blind spot, expanding your strengths is going to allow people to provide you with better feedback, and also there's potential for you to grow. So I need you to ask someone you trust, what's one thing I might be unaware of about how I show up in the team? And then give someone feedback, tell them a strength they might not see in themselves. So if you do, that's generally reciprocated. And then I need you to think about stepping into discomfort. Say yes to a challenge before you feel ready to do it. And that could be anything. It could be a mental challenge, could be a physical challenge, it could be something like that. And then when you start, if you were to have the JHA window set up so that you had the 4 quadrants on a piece of paper and you were to fill these out. So the first one is, okay, what is it I know about myself that others know about me? Let's make a list of those things. And the next one is, okay, whenever I felt really uncomfortable that someone's given me feedback and I've gone, that's rubbish. And then over time, slowly I went, oh, that's probably right. So then fill that quadrant out, that hidden quadrant. And then keep going through and filling out all the different quadrants until you can understand or see yourself possibly through a larger lens than just the self-actualizing lens that you've set up right at the start, that whole seeing yourself, that self-perception lens. And I think that would really set you up to be a better leader. Yeah. So that's it for this week. Real leadership, starting with clarity. If this has hit home for you, then do me a favor. You could screenshot this episode, share it on LinkedIn and tag me. And then let's keep the conversation going. And if you're serious about sharpening skills, you can grab a free copy of the Hindsight High Performance Playbook. That's in the newsletter that's coming out tomorrow. And that's a structured approach to self-awareness, leadership, and also resilience. And that's the link to that is in the newsletter, as I said, that comes out tomorrow. So until next time, lead well. And I don't even know what's going on next week yet. I need to get through this first couple of days and then I'll work out what the topic is for next week. So let me know if you want any other content. Just feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or also on email. Thanks very much.